Speaking to the average mortal of Terratus, you'll get various opinions about who or what KYROS is. Some think KYROS is a dude, some think KYROS is a lady, some think KYROS is a giant beast with a dozen heads. KYROS is a highly peculiar overlord. One who does not simply prefer to remain behind the curtains, but who maintains almost complete secrecy as to what they look like. As opposed to most dictators in our world, there are no portraits of the dear leader, no grand military demonstrations in the streets, no propaganda per se. KYROS is less into the idea of a cult of personality and more into the cult of showcasing their tremendous power on the one hand and silencing any and all dissent through assassinations on the other. Fostering this sense of mystery is a great part of Tyranny's world building because it feeds very well into you as the player wanting to find out more and developing your own theories and speculation as to the real nature of KYROS. Fact of the matter is, only the Archons have met with KYROS and they don't spill the Overlord's tea, no matter how much you push or how good of a reputation you have with them. But first we need to address how Terratus got to this place. Why did KYROS succeed in conquering almost the entirety of this world? How? This campaign of conquest has been ongoing for more than 400 years by the time we show up in the story, but it hasn't all been war and slaughter. Some regions were conquered through intimidation, some were willing to be assimilated, but this process has been going on for 431 years, more or less, since that's the point in time when the game starts. In appropriate autocratic MO, KYROS institutes a new calendar for Terratus, whose year 0 is when KYROS' first edict was declared. But not only that, they also introduced a new currency meant to centralize their influence and power over the economic life of Terratus, while at the same time enacting KYROS' laws all throughout the conquered territories. This is what I meant when I said KYROS is a peculiar overlord. While everyone in Terratus is aware of KYROS' name, they don't know it in the sense of KYROS did this or KYROS did that. Instead, they come into contact with the overlord through their system of laws. It's not KYROS who says this or that, it's KYROS' law that says this or that. It's a subtle difference, but it is there. In a sense, instead of concentrating power into one figurehead, thus making them much more of a target, KYROS obfuscates that usual tyrant trope by injecting that power in a series of laws that rule the land, which the Fatebinders are tasked with enforcing. So when you add them all together, the new calendar, new currency, and new system of laws and justice, KYROS does not simply conquer realms. KYROS remakes them, controlling the people not simply through fear and threat, but also economically and down to the very names of the days in their calendar. And I mentioned earlier the new calendar started with KYROS' first edict. So what's an edict? First of all, edicts are pivotal to both the plot of the game and the history of Terratus. Edicts are the Terratus equivalent of real-world weapons of mass destruction. They are spells of never-before-seen magnitude, created by KYROS and generally proclaimed by intermediaries, such as your Fatebinder character, and have always been destructive in nature. There's been no positive edict in the 400 plus year history of KYROS' campaign. The edicts are used to solve particularly pesky problems that have proven resistant to more conventional methods, and in case the edict doesn't solve the problem initially, it continues doing what it does till the problem is solved. The edicts can affect entire regions of the map or just particular places, generally obliterating something out of existence through some means or another, but their lifespan is tied to the wording of each edict. In this way, they work like one-time use laws, because they are only enforced till their requirements are met to the letter. The game starts with your Fatebinder character pronouncing such an edict that works as an ultimatum of sorts. It is not meant to affect a region physically, like previous ones, instead it is meant to incentivize the two competing armies of KYROS to get their shit together and conquer a fortress by a particular day, or the edict will kill everyone in the region, including the armies, the locals they're trying to conquer, and the Fatebinder, of course. If various regions or kingdoms could have dealt with the Archon-led armies, With their own archons and armies, no other faction on Terratus had the immense power of the Edict at their disposal. This is what makes KYROS' conquest inevitable, unavoidable, and unstoppable. It's not an issue of if, but when. Because if KYROS doesn't conquer you outright, they can simply poison the water, make it not rain, unleash earthquakes, set a magical fire that cannot be extinguished, or do any manner of other catastrophic stuff to your territory that will make it unlivable. Now, that's not a very productive way of conquering, I'll grant you that, but that's never the idea behind using weapons with such destructive power. On the one hand, they are a show of force, a demonstration of what could potentially happen to other places if they resist, making an example. On the other hand, they are also a great means of eliminating kernels of unrest which could prove to become problematic later on. And there are plenty of precedents strewn all across Terratus that illustrate this approach. You get to visit several regions of the world where destructive edicts are still ongoing, and you get to end a couple of them. I have to make an important distinction here though, because KYROS is not in control of the edicts per se. They can create them, sure, but KYROS has never ended one through sheer force of will. All edicts have special wording in them that will see them end when certain requirements or deadlines are met. I also need to point towards how the edicts need a human voice to be declared, this being the last component they require to become reality. But this dubious honor of being the edict proclaimer comes with some consequences, with many of those who have been in that role throughout history reporting lingering mystic scars as a result, and generally a reduced lifespan than average. While up until a certain point in the game we associate edicts with KYROS, that 400+ year monopoly ends when you as a Fatebinder gain the ability to enact your own edicts, as a result of your connection with the spires and the ancient mysterious magics within. I have a separate video about the spires and the old world's plan for the future. As a result of this new show of immense power, KYROS recognizes you as an Archon, and much like they did with the previous Archons, you'll have to choose to either serve KYROS or be destroyed. And unfortunately, that is where the story ends. Very anticlimactically, cliffhangery of sorts, with the Fatebinder as a new Archon with the power to cast your own edicts, deciding whether to serve KYROS or not, and either having to prepare for war with the army that KYROS had already sent your way, or bending the knee. To say this ending was unsatisfying is to put it mildly, not because it didn't answer more questions about the world of Terratus or the nature of KYROS, but because it obviously ends before things get super interesting and possibly magically epic. And it's a shame, because it would be a story that not only built up to such an epic conclusion, but also earned it, which is much harder to do. Throughout the game, a clear link between the edicts and the spires becomes apparent, especially when your character uses one of the spires to proclaim your own edict, and being able to do this outside of KYROS' influence, which leads to the conclusion that edicts are in fact not KYROS' creation. They are simply a tool, perhaps a weapon, created by the ancient civilization that built the spires and the old walls. KYROS has somehow managed to understand and use these spells more than 400 years ago. Coincidentally, KYROS has some very strict laws about access to the old walls. Entry to the old walls is punishable by death. However, entering the old walls will most likely result in one's death anyway because of the magic entities within. It's almost as if KYROS purposefully set that law in order to distract from the importance of the spires, because once you forbid something, that's how you ensure to make it irresistible to people. And I leave you with this final intriguing thing. There is one very succulent tidbit of information at a certain point in the game about KYROS being at a spire around the year -50. But that's where the mention ends, because the person who said that was decapitated the next following second. Now, that's both suspicious and intriguing, isn't it? If you wanna check out my other Tyranny videos, there's a playlist on screen that will help with that. Please like the video if you liked it, and comment that thought you had while watching it to help me with the YouTube algorithm. I've been Stephen Ansons, I have a Patreon, have a great rest of your day, and see you in my next video.